Hey everyone, so today I thought I would do a quick video answering some of your guys' university questions. I've asked in a few of my videos recently if you had any specific university questions, and I've also got a couple of DMs on Instagram, and I thought I would just answer them in a video because I feel like the answers to them will be helpful for most people. So if you're going into your first year of university, these might be questions that you're thinking as well. Also, if you have any additional questions, feel free to leave them in a comment down below and I'll try my best to answer them. I'm obviously not an expert, but I have experienced university myself. I have graduated this year, so I feel like I have some knowledge on the topic. I'm obviously not an expert, but if you have any questions, I will try my best to answer them. Also, before I start, please excuse my hair. It is still a bit damp. I washed it earlier and it hasn't quite dried yet. But if it looks greasy, it's not, it's just a bit damp, so just ignore that, and I'm going to start with the questions. I have written all the questions out on my phone and I'm not going to bother reading out names just in case I butcher them. But the first question is, would you recommend taking notes in lectures by hand or on a laptop? And I think this is a really good question because I'm guessing it's the same for most secondary schools. At least in mine, we didn't have laptops to take notes in during like class. And then obviously that is an option at university. You can either write on a laptop or by hand. Throughout my 3 years, I kind of chopped and changed with what I used to take notes with. So I think it's definitely a personal preference. I think there's no harm in taking a notepad and a laptop to a lecture and, you know, trying one out, and if you don't like it, using the next time, or swapping halfway through depending on how you're getting on with it. I think it also depends on what your lectures are like. If they're very content heavy and you have to write things quickly, if it's better to like scribble notes down, or if you can type faster, then you might find a laptop easier. For me, I found that if it was a lecture that they were going to give me the slides for, so if they had really good presentation slides which had a lot of information on, and I only kind of needed to write additional notes, I would prefer doing that by hand, just because I could write more information and kind of like scribble it out and be a bit messy and move things around, and then when I'd get home I'd copy up all my notes onto my laptop. Now that's definitely a more time consuming way of doing things, and maybe as you get into the year you won't have time to do that as much, but that's what I found worked best for me because it really got everything into my head because I was going over it twice. But then if it was a case of if I wasn't going to get given the lecture slides, or the lecture slides were really naff and they had nothing written on them, I would usually do my lectures by typing, just because I could type quicker and I could get all the information down quicker. So I definitely think whether you use a laptop or you handwrite your notes is a personal thing. I think you've just got to give both a shot and see what you prefer. You might find that for some lectures you prefer handwriting and for others you prefer a laptop, and you can just kind of change between the two. Definitely for me, I prefer having my final notes all on my computer just because it's a lot neater and I have it all in one place and I don't have to worry about losing scraps of paper or anything like that. So even if I hand wrote my lecture notes, I'd always copy them up, but yeah, that's just what worked for me. The next question is, should I buy tickets for the fresher events such as Icebreakers or wait until uni? So I'm guessing it's the same for most unis across the UK, at least in England. For me at the University of Exeter, we had a sort of like wristband in Freshers Week that kind of gave you access to all of the events that you could buy for like an expensive amount, I'm pretty sure. Or you could just buy tickets beforehand for like particular events that you're interested in. Now, I personally would not recommend getting the wristband or getting really that many tickets in advance. I would just wait until you're at university and you know what your friends are doing. In my first year, those that had bought wristbands sold them on anyway because they weren't going to enough events to make it worth it, and a lot of our flat weren't going to the same events. And for the couple of events that I did buy tickets in advance for, I ended up selling them as well because my housemates weren't going and I kind of wanted to do whatever my housemates were doing. So I definitely think it's worth just waiting and seeing what your housemates are doing, or if you're on like a group chat like on Facebook or something beforehand and you're all discussing what you're doing, maybe arranging on there what tickets you're going to buy, because otherwise it's just not worth it. You'll waste your money. I mean, it's fairly easy to sell them on, at least it was when I was in first year, because people are always looking for tickets. Either they haven't bought them and all of their house have got tickets, or they have bought them and none of their house have got tickets. People are usually selling tickets for cheap prices and you can just get them on the day. So that's what I would personally recommend doing, is just wait until you get to your flat, see what your flatmates are doing, and decide as a group which events you want to go to, and then just buy the specific tickets for each event. And if you're looking for tickets, a really good way to do that is just to go on like your university's Facebook page. If you've got like a student Facebook page for first years or whatever, there's always like those kind of groups on Facebook. just go on there, and I'm sure someone will have put up like a post saying I'm selling a ticket to this event, and you can just comment and say like I'll buy it, or vice versa. If you want to sell a ticket, you can just post on there, and it's usually really easy to do, and people will always be selling a ticket to the event you want to go to, so I wouldn't stress too much. The next question is one I got on Instagram, and I did reply to their Instagram DM, but I thought I would put it in this video anyway just because I could go into more detail, and also some of you guys might be interested in it as well. So they asked, what was it like fitting in hobbies and clubs around studying, and was my course quite intense or was it more independent learning? So this is obviously going to vary completely between whatever course you're on, whatever university you're at. It's going to be completely different, so I kind of can't speak for the most part. But for me, my course didn't have a massive amount of contact hours. I mean, I probably had the average amount, and it's not like secondary school where you're in like 9 till 3 or whatever every single day. You definitely have a lot more spare time, which is obviously meant for like independent learning, but contact hours I personally didn't have that many of. And then in terms of fitting clubs and hobbies and stuff around that, I think it's fairly easy to do at university, but again, this is just speaking from my course. Some other courses might be a lot more intense. I know at the University of Exeter, and I don't know if this is a thing everywhere, it might be, but Wednesday afternoons were kind of reserved for sports clubs. So you could pick when you're doing your timetable to have the Wednesday afternoons off if you had a sports club that you'd be going to. So most people had Wednesday afternoons off, and if they were going to do a sports, that's when they would do them. So you're kind of even given free time to be able to do that, as well as having a lot of free time anyway to do hobbies and clubs and societies and all that sort of thing. I definitely think you've got enough time, and I would so recommend doing societies and hobbies and as many clubs as you can, and just work out kind of what you can handle. There's no harm in trying stuff at the beginning and not continuing them on if you don't feel like you've got enough time to do them, but I would just throw yourself into as many things as possible just to get the experience of it, meet new people, and kind of have a more like rounded university experience, because as much as it is about getting a degree, there are a lot of other elements of university that are worth making the most of as well. Also, I would say that first year is like the best time to join hobbies and stuff as well, because your workload in first year is usually a lot less than second and third year, and first year doesn't count for most courses, I believe, at least it doesn't in the University of Exeter. So the grades that you get in first year, although they're important, they don't contribute to your final degree score at the end of the 3 years. So you kind of have a little bit more flexibility with your work and balancing it with hobbies and things. And it's also a good time to kind of evaluate what you can fit in your time, if that makes sense. Like first year is kind of like a test year, like you can join these different hobbies, work out which ones you like and which ones you'd want to continue on, work out how much you can actually fit into your timetable without like having a mental breakdown. So I would definitely make the most of first year, and then second year, if you find that you can't fit in whatever hobbies and clubs you wanted to do, maybe just drop 1 or 2 for second year and just see how it goes. But I would definitely recommend joining clubs and hobbies and things in first year. So the next question is, should I bring a printer? And again, I answered this, but I wanted to put it in this video as well, just in case it helped any of you guys out. I personally did bring a printer to university, and I was so happy that I did. I'm pretty sure I put it in my video of things to bring to uni, which I will link. I'll link my whole university playlist in the description. But I brought a printer. Looking back, I can't even really think what I used it for, but I know that I was very thankful for having it, because even though you can use the printers on campus, at the University of Exeter I think you got like £1 credit, and then you'd obviously have to top it up depending on how much stuff you needed to print. And it was just quite a faff, like having to go up to campus to print something out. Like if you just needed a form for something, even if it wasn't university related, like a doctor's form or something, it was just so much easier just being able to print it out straight away and not having to plan your day around, you know, headed to campus and printing it out. Even though like that's just me being lazy, like campus was a 5-minute walk from my accommodation at university, but you know, it's just an extra hassle that as a student I didn't really want, and having a printer for me was just, it made everything a lot easier. People in my flat also used it because it ends up being like helpful to have one. If you can get one cheap, I would recommend it. If you have space for one, I would recommend it, because for me personally, it made university life a little bit easier, and especially when it came to like revision notes and things like that, you've already got it. Like you don't have to go out, you don't have to get out of your pajamas to go print something. So I personally brought a printer, but obviously it's a personal choice, and you might find for your course and for whatever you do, you might not need one as much. The next question is about part-time jobs and how easy it is to find them. So I don't know whether this is specific to Exeter or if it's kind of a general question about university and part-time jobs in general. But I had a part-time job in second year for about 6 months. I worked in a cafe just on a Saturday, and that was kind of fine. I think part-time jobs are relatively easy to find in especially like student cities, if that makes sense, because there's a lot of positions that they kind of only have for students because they're there for specific, you know, time periods and whatever. So I think personally it's probably relatively easy to find a part-time job, especially if you're just looking at like bar work, cafe work, kind of retail jobs, that sort of thing. Also, there are a lot of part-time jobs that the university give out, so that's something else to look into. So you can do things like tour guiding or like accommodation tours or just helping out on open days and things like that, and that's usually fairly good pay, and obviously you don't have to commit to like a regular hour job. That's kind of just like extra fun money, I would kind of consider it as. So I would definitely say it's kind of relatively easy to find part-time work if that's something you're really keen on doing in first year. I would say if you can get away with not having a part-time job for the first couple of months of first year, I would recommend doing that. But obviously everyone's financial situation is different and some people will need to get a part-time job. So if you do need to get a part-time job, I would say maybe look beforehand and send some emails out before you start university, just because obviously all of the students are going to come in at once, and anyone that wants a part-time job, they're all going to be handing their CVs out at once. So if you can just get in that little bit earlier, like they might see you beforehand and pick you over someone else that hands their CV in a little bit later. So if you definitely need a part-time job, that's what I would recommend doing. But like I said, if you can get away with not having one for the first couple of months, I would recommend doing that, just because the first couple of months, everything's different. You're in a new environment, you're meeting new people, and I personally think a new job on top of that would maybe be a little bit overwhelming for me at least. So if you can get away with not having one for a couple of months at least, I would say that, but if not, I would try and get in early to get a job. And then the final question that I'm going to answer is any advice about university and the course. So I was at the University of Exeter and I studied psychology. So like I said, I'm going to link my university playlist in the description because I've got videos on why I chose the University of Exeter and kind of stuff about my course, and also kind of my experiences in second and third year, which might be helpful as well. So I'm trying to think of like general advice I can think about for university in general. I would definitely say go in with an open mind, kind of don't overthink it before you go, because I definitely did that before my first year and I just stressed myself out to the point where I was like really ill in Freshers Week. So don't overthink it. I know that's easier said than done. Try and make the most of it, which again is easier said than done, because once you're there, everything's new, everything's fun, and you just kind of don't think about making the most of it. But for me, I wish I'd joined more like societies and more like just did more things and made the most of being at university. So I would definitely say that as well. In terms of my course, I'm not sure what advice I would say. Go to lectures, that's probably a good piece of advice that I didn't take myself in first year, and kind of get a feel for what areas of psychology you enjoy, because when you have more choice in third year, you can kind of use that to pick your specific modules. In first and second year, it's kind of a little bit annoying because you don't have really that much choice over what you study. So definitely kind of use those 2 years to find a little area that you prefer, and then you can use third year to kind of really develop that. And yeah, I would say that that is probably the best advice I've got. Hopefully some of the other videos I've linked will maybe be a little bit more helpful, but they have been all of the questions I'm going to answer today. I hope I maybe have helped some of you guys out. Like I said, if you've got any other questions, definitely leave them in a comment. For any of you that are starting university in a couple of weeks, I wish you the best of luck. That is like so exciting. I'm so jealous that I can't go back into my first year. Let me know also in the comments if you are going to university, where you're going and what you're studying, because I'm just kind of, I'm nosy, I'm curious. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!